Okay, hello, good evening. Thank you all for coming. This is the Wards 2 Neighborhood Planning Assembly. So happy to have everyone here. There's a bunch of new faces. That's awesome. So some brief introductions. My name's Erica Faulkner. I am on the steering committee. We have 3 other steering committee members here. We have Mark. Can you raise your hand? We have Kaysen, and we have Charlie. I don't see Charlie. He's running around in the back there. Awesome. There are some extra open spaces. If anyone is interested in joining, come and chat with me, and I'd be willing to talk to you at the end of the meeting about what that would entail. Or you can always email us, as you can also always email us if you have an idea for a presentation or anything. So doing a quick rundown during our meeting today, we are going to start with intros, followed by public forum. We're going to have an update from the Parks Department. We're going to have a conversation about what we're going to use with our neighborhood planning funds. We're going to hear updates from the school commission and then updates from city councilors as well. So I'm going to quickly transition us over to public forum. Everyone can have 2 minutes max to talk. And yeah, I'm going to ask everyone to please fully state your name, pronouns, and either the street or the ward you live in. Awesome. Okay. So does anyone have any announcements for public forum? Yes. Hello.
Thank you. I'm Andrea Todd, Ward 2, Rose Street. I don't know the exact date of it yet, and I'm hoping maybe Gene, who I haven't seen yet, if he's here, coming soon, maybe in a month or 2, is going to be the public transportation meeting, or public transportation strategic planning, like an opportunity for the city to be reevaluating and looking at ways that transportation is happening in Burlington. So I just want people just to know that that's coming, and that you should put that in your back of your mind, that you have a chance to contribute to the transportation aspect of the city. And I hope that the city does a good job announcing when that meeting's going to happen. And hopefully, Gene, I can ask him later. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Megan Humphrey, and I live on St. Louis Street. And I have a couple quick announcements. We have a display over there for hands. And the meal that you ate tonight was created by Chef Robin Burnett, who teaches our Hands in the Kitchen nutrition education workshops. So, and she is a real chef. So I just wanted to let you know that about the food that you ate, which was delicious. And also, I wanted to give you the heads up about One Mutual Aid, because they always need help. So that was an organization that was pulled together during COVID, and they're struggling to keep going, and they often need financial donations or physical donations of food or cat food, lots of different supplies for young families, things like that. So if anyone is interested in helping them, either volunteering or donating, their email is onemutualaid@gmail.com, and they're always looking for people to help. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to wait and see if there's anyone else on this side of the room, because I haven't been looking at that side. Anyone here who has an announcement? Okay, if you have an announcement later, you totally can. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Hey folks, my name is Mila Grant. I am your Central District City Councilor, which is Wards 2 and 3. And believe it or not, that first 2 years has flown on by, and I am seeking re-election this town meeting day. I must get some signatures. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So I need some signatures in order to get on the ballot. So I'll be kind of sneaking around during the festivities to have people sign. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you all for support, updating the website, milogrant.com. And I've been told I have to ask for money. Ugh. And I want to apologize in advance. Just when you thought after the November election was over and you would never receive a political text again, I might be sending some. So sorry. You have to live in either Ward 2 or Ward 3.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, any other announcements? Any other public updates? Thank you. Okay. Name and your street and ward.
My name is Noah Cass. He, him pronouns. I live on Booth Street. I work for Youth Build, which is a construction and life skills program. And we do a service project every MLK Day. And we had a program partner who the service project we were going to do dropped out. So we're looking for a service project on the 20th of January. Could be mutual aid. Last year we cooked a meal for Food Not Cops and distributed that. So if anybody, a lot of community connectors in this room, if anybody has a good service project for the 20th, come talk to me. That'd be great. And also thank you to the organizers. Food was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else have any public forum updates? Okay, gonna give another moment. Okay, thank you guys for everyone who shared. So now up next, sorry, I'm gonna just check my notes to make sure I'm not getting anything incorrect. Okay, so up next we're gonna be hearing from Sophie Savoy, Parks Comprehensive Planner, with an update on some of the Parks projects. So, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us up here. I'm Sophie Sauvé. I'm the Parks Comprehensive Planner, and I'm joined by
John Adams Collitz. I'm the project manager with the Parks Department.
So we're here tonight to talk to you or provide an update on the Roosevelt Park Comprehensive Plan, which has wrapped up, and an update on the Pomeroy Park Playground Replacement Project, which is an ongoing project right now. So just before I get into those updates, just wanted to give you kind of an overview of how we've been proceeding in the last at least 5+ years in terms of engagement with the public for all of our projects that are planning related. So there are usually 3 kind of steps to a planning project. We bring this forward, or bring a project forward to the community when we want to envision something, when we're looking for feedback on refining a project or refining details to a project. And then we're here, for example, tonight to give you an update on a project. These are the icons we've been using all along, just to give you kind of that background. When we have a public meeting, we have a board that kind of gives an impression of where we are in that project. It's not usually linear. We usually go down and then come back up or circle around depending on what the project is. And in this one, we're just giving an update, but it doesn't mean we're at the end of the project. We're actually going to be probably circling through a few of these. So this is just an example of one of the boards we've had at our, when you come into one of our public meetings for planning projects. So the 2 parks I'm talking about, I'm sure most people are familiar with. Roosevelt Park, which is across from the Boys and Girls Club, not far from Integrated Arts Academy, and then Pomeroy Park, which is just off North Street, closer to Booth, or right next to Booth, actually. So in terms of the Roosevelt Comprehensive Plan, the project has wrapped up in terms of feedback from the community. Our consultants are currently wrapping up the final report, which will give an overview of the whole process for I think it was a 1.5-year process for the project, but I can give you an overview of where things landed. So I'm sorry if this little box is in the way, but the existing conditions for the park, I hope everybody's familiar with. If you're not, you can go to the park now and this is what it is. But essentially you can see that we have Boys and Girls Club to the north, Little Rosie to the south, which has our playground, and then in between we have the main park with Little League and soccer. And then we also have basketball courts and the tennis courts that were recently renovated. And then in the middle there's the building that's used primarily by the Boys and Girls Club after school homework club. So the final plan, essentially, which was presented in September of this year, looks at a few key changes to the park. And just be forewarned, we're not closing down the park next year and doing all these changes. It will be integrated over time into our capital plan. So at no time will the whole park be closed down. It will be one thing at a time, essentially. One of the main things that we're proposing is that there be sidewalks or a multi-use path all along the perimeter of the park. Currently, some of the ball field components are outside of the parcel line, so we, at some point when we go to renovate the Little League field, one, we'd rotate it. As you can see, it's more oriented on the south side now, which is a better orientation for a pitcher and catcher and everyone else who's playing ball. But also we would scoot it into our property line because currently it's over the right-of-way. This enables us not only to add in facilities for sidewalk or a multi-use path around that perimeter of the park, but also to establish a permanent space for soccer. Currently soccer is there, but people who play soccer feel like Little League is there mainly, and then there's soccer. We want the two to coexist, and that's based on a lot of community feedback of kids who feel like they want to be able to feel like they can play soccer. Of course, when Little League is being played, we can't have soccer at the same time, but there would be goals there that could be moved back and forth, essentially, for that second goal. In addition, we're not doing anything with the basketball courts aside from renovations when the time is due. Same with the tennis courts in the building. But we also heard from a lot of folks that there's some spaces that are underutilized in the park, and that one of the facilities that is wished for is a roller skating area. So adjacent to the basketball court is where that roller skating facility could go. Could also be used for...
When are we going to be exposed to pure free amino acids and free ribonucleotides
that's not me.
Together at the same time? Really, the only time
it could also be used
is
for...
when a food is being broken down. It's somehow decomposing. And there's really only 3 ways that happens.
Fermentation, drying, and cooking.
You'll find lots of awesome umami flavors and cooked meats.
Might learn something new about the park here.
Seaweed broth.
And when you taste umami, you're actually detecting...
Can everybody hear me if I just keep going over it? Okay. So ideally with this roller skating area, when the basketball courts are not being used, it could be used for a big open space for that activity. Okay, now it's really bad.
There's no sun up in the sky.
We good? Okay. It's awesome. That's not the kind of music we would have at the roller skating area, I think.
This is one of the reasons they're remodeling the building in February.
Okay. So back to the roller skating area. Having it adjacent to the basketball courts would allow for that area to be widely used when basketball wasn't being played, so it could act as an event space for that. On the south side of the building, we have a flex field, which was envisioned as either futsal or adding additional space for playing tennis, which we heard was one of the requests from the community, or other sports in a smaller space, and it would be artificial turf, so it wouldn't be kicked up as much, and because it's smaller and there'd be a lot of use, it'd be easier to maintain for our staff, and it would be enclosed, so balls wouldn't go everywhere. And then across the street, even though we had floated the idea of potentially moving the playground area into the main part of the park, the majority of the community members wanted it to remain on the other side of the street. One, because a lot of folks appreciate the enclosure of being able to sit in there and kind of let their kids go because there's fence all around. And also just separating the uses within the park. In addition to playground equipment, which would be replaced when it's time, water features were also pretty popular in terms of a desired element. But we didn't want that space to just be for water play. It will be also for a playground and potentially also adult or other fitness equipment. So as a parent, how many times have I sat in a playground and watched my kids be active? It would be nice to have an option to potentially be active while they're active as well. So that's what we're thinking about. But also that older kids might also want to use those components. So in a nutshell, that's the plan for Roosevelt Park. Again, we're not going in next year and building everything. All these pieces will go into our capital plan over time. And what the comprehensive plan allows us to do as well is to apply for grants. A lot of grants require us to have done community outreach, so all that has been done. And when we identify a grant funding source, we have all that documentation to make a strong application for grant funding. And that has proven to be successful for Callahan Park, for example. We're currently implementing one of the paths that we propose to have in that comprehensive plan process. So I will move on to, so I already mentioned the next steps. So Pomeroy Park playground replacement, again, it's an update at this point, and I'll go through where we've gone and where we're going. So why Pomeroy Playground? In 2021, we had to remove the tot lot, which is the structure for 2 to 5-year-olds from that park, because there were safety components that were no longer functional. And with a lot of our playgrounds, they were installed 30 some years ago, and as much as our staff has tried to replace components over time to prolong the longevity of those playgrounds, sometimes the parts just don't exist anymore. And that was the case in the tot lot at Pomeroy Park. So as soon as that was taken out, a lot of community members applied to our Penny for Parks program. We set aside $40,000 every year for community requests and receive in the average 5 to 6 requests a year for smaller things. But in this case, we had a lot of members who applied for it, and we granted that money, which means we set it aside for us to put together a project. And even though we had that funding set aside for the tot lot, when we went to bid it out, we didn't get any bids. It was too small of a project. So pulling back from that and kind of reflecting on what would be our strategy to be able to move the tot lot forward, we looked at our list of playgrounds that are due for replacement and realized that Pomeroy was somewhere at the top. So to be efficient from both a staff standpoint and a financial standpoint, that's when we decided to do an overhaul of the entire playground. So in the photos on the left, that's the little tot lot that was there when it was installed, and then the empty space where it is no longer. So not only do we need to replace the playground, but going into that space, if you've been there lately, you'll notice that when you walk down the path here, which connects to the main path through the park, there's a 6-inch dip into the playground area, and then there's no path at all. So from a BPRW perspective, we're striving to make our play spaces and parks in general more accessible, because when they were built in the 1970s and before, they weren't thinking about everybody. They were thinking about the average bear, right? So when we're looking at this, we don't just want to put in a playground structure and then it's still not accessible. So we'll not only be doing that, but we'll be connecting the path to make it easy for everybody to access. And even if you're not thinking about someone with a mobility device or crutches or whatever, think about all the moms and dads or caretakers with strollers. And then there's this bump, right? So it's not convenient for anybody. So that's what one of the key parts of replacing this playground is, also making sure that everybody can get to it. Not only that, but a lot of our parks where there isn't dedicated parking, there aren't dedicated ADA spaces next to the park. So that's something we're working with DPW to establish, is where on that street can we have an accessible parking space, which also requires a curb cut. Currently, the curb cut is nowhere near our path, so I'll show it in the aerial. It's a bit strange where it is established. So these are the existing conditions of the park, but we're just focusing right now mainly on the playground, but again, on creating that connection to the playground. So if you look at this aerial, you'll see this space here, where I hope you can see my cursor. That's where the curb cut is right now, and our path is here. So We're trying to figure out why that's the case, and we think it's because previous to the park's existence, it was Pomeroy School, and perhaps the driveway to the school was there. But we're working with DPW to move that curb cut to make a lot more sense to be there. And currently, when our plow folks are trying to get into the park to plow the path, they have to go up this curb cut and then they cut through the grass because those things don't turn on a dime, and then they're coming in. So it's going to be just a great change for a lot of needs and maintenance. So this is the playground area. This is the tot lot area that we had identified in a bid, and no one bid on it. So again, we're extending it to the rest of the playground. This is a view from the gate, in case you haven't been there in a while. It's a nice space to go in at any time of the day because it's kind of pushed in to the park and away from the traffic, and that's what a lot of people seem to really enjoy about this playground in particular. So in terms of engagement, we launched a survey earlier in the fall, which wrapped up in December. At the same time, we've been reaching out to different groups and childcare facilities that use the park on a daily or at least weekly basis. We had a hot chocolate day in the park in December. Thank goodness the weather wasn't like it is right now. And then we've also worked with Burlington High School City and Lake Semester. They did a consultancy and came and talked to us about the park. They learned about our jobs and our background, and then they went back and did some designing of their own. It's always really interesting to listen into those conversations. And then we also have met with parents and children at Burlington Children's Space. SA, a Sustainability Academy, came out to our hot chocolate in the park. And we keep trying to talk to people. Coming up, we'll be talking to the teachers at Burlington Children's Space. The Y also uses Pomeroy Park on a weekly basis, and the One Arts Community School. And if you know of any other facilities or centers that use them, please let us know. So at Hot Chocolate in the Park, kids were invited to vote on the different kind of activities they want to do in a playground, and also to do some drawing. And obviously, they took on the challenge of giving us some beautiful drawings. In terms of the survey that we had launched, it was primarily to get input in terms of who is using the park, how far do people come from to get to Pomeroy Park, and also about the conversation about the fence that separates the playground from the rest of the park. Out of that survey, we had 52 people respond and completed the survey. 88% of them live in the Old North End, 86% walk to the park, 46% respondents visit the park once a day, 40% visit once a week, so that's 86% are there pretty often. 84% like the fence or a separation between the playground and the rest of the park. A lot of the feedback I find more interesting than the data, but that's because I'm not a data person. But a lot of the comments were about what they like about the playground, what they don't like, and why they like the separation between the uses. And we've been hearing similarly from the childcare centers that separation makes it a lot easier for them to manage more than one child, and especially if you have a runner or two. So a lot of people are really excited about the playground getting updated, and that they're hoping that it gets done soon. Obviously, since the tot lot's been out since 21, that's our goal, is to get it done soon. And then there's conflicting feedback about the separation between the park and the playground, because even though dogs are not allowed in the playground because of the diseases and everything that feces and pee carry, some people still are using that playground for their dog to run loose. So we have people who are saying no dogs, absolutely not, and then others wishing that there could be the two uses could go together. But from a health and safety perspective, they cannot live together, and that's the reason why that we've posted no dogs in the park. A lot of people appreciate the shade and want more seating in the park, and some people, love swings or not, and different kinds of structures. But the things that we are really evaluating is how do we make it safe for kids to be in there and respond to the need for enclosure in terms of those runners we're talking about, and at the same time, just hear what everybody's saying. So as you can see, 11% of respondents use the enclosed area for their dogs, even though they're not supposed to. So in terms of next steps, we're working with DPW, as I mentioned, on that accessible parking space and moving the curb cut on Booth Street. And as a team, we'll be working on just looking at circulation and how we can improve those connections and the accessibility within the park. And then once we've kind of designated where the different zones in the playgrounds will be, then we would come back to the community and ask or offer different options and have some weigh in at that point. We'll also be talking to the Burlington Advisory Committee on accessibility, because when we're talking about access, it's not just physical access, but emotional access as well. And we want to make sure our spaces are inclusive of everybody. People may not use all the structures or whatever is going into the playground, but we want to make sure someone can find something that they like in these spaces. And our goal is to get this into construction by this summer. So we're on a relatively good path to do so, and we're going to, yes, that's our goal. And hopefully, because it's a bigger project at this point, we'll get some bids in. And the earlier we get them out, the better chance we have of reaching that goal of having it constructed by this summer. So that's what I have as an overview. I hope there are some questions, and we're happy to be here to answer them, or at least try to.
Thank you. Who all here has questions?
Hello, my name is Solveig Overby, and my question is about Roosevelt Park. And there used to be ice skating to the south of the park building. And I think it's sort of been difficult to do it over the last few years because of the weather. But I'm wondering if it would be possible some way with, let's say, the tennis courts during the winter, if there's a way to make that a plastic surface, and maybe you got to change the fence around a bit. But would it be possible to think about that as an option, again, coming back with the current plan?
So with the current plan, I think the flex field would be the better option for that kind of activity. But the challenge with ice, as you know, in the past couple of years, it's just been challenging to have it and maintain it. In the parks that currently or now have a skating rink, at least started, they're flooding, are Callahan and Lakeside Park, and they have community groups that are helping to support that. Our staff, with the different changes in temperature and climate, are unable to maintain them all, if that makes sense. So if there was a community group behind that, then I think it would be an easier conversation to move it forward. The tennis courts, we would not recommend flooding them. They're brand new and it would damage them. Just like the ones at Callahan, they flood the basketball courts, and those are in bad shape. At this point, we just replaced the tennis courts, so we would not recommend flooding the tennis courts. It's still really damaging, yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, it would have to be south of the building is where it was located previously, and that would be where they'd want to do it, yeah.
Okay. Sophie. John, thank you. Brian Pine, I live on Crowley Street, and I'm taking off my hat that I wear when I'm at my day job and putting on my Center City Little League hat. And just for a little bit of historical context, for about 40 years, Burlington had 2 Little Leagues, and the kids in the Old North End didn't have an opportunity to play Little League, and so I think it's just important to remember that it was Bernie who brought Little League to the Old North End in the early 80s. And we had the substandard facilities for most of the time until around 2004, 2005, we started rallying the community for the upgrades that you see there now. So when you see those, they didn't just pop up. It wasn't a city initiative. It was from the community that was created. And it doesn't just give kids a great opportunity to play the game, but it gives them a little bit of pride in their neighborhood field as well when they go out to the New North End and see those incredible fields. There's multiple fields, and they have multiple scoreboards and all those great facilities. So my only request is that you replace everything that we raised. I raised most of the money, really, and some folks pitched in, but I raised most of it to get the scoreboard, the bleachers. Underneath, we have irrigation, we have special soil that drains, we have the dugouts that were built by Jimmy Ellsman from Crombie Street. We have a lot of neighborhood sweat and equity into that, and I just hope you remember that when you relocate everything and it gets done just as well as it was done when we did it.
Thanks. Yeah, that would be the intent.
Okay, great, thanks.
Andrea, you can now go. Sorry for that
That's
miscommunication.
okay. Thank you, Andrea Todd, Rose Street. I have a few questions. When the consultants were talking about Roosevelt, they pitched the that thing as a ice rink. I just want you to know that there was never kind of a conversation of like, maybe this could be. They were like, this would be a good ice rink. So I think that I just want to circle back to the communication piece in that process. Is it possible? I guess my question is it? If the picture of that would be great. What is I think going to be is it this? You said the south section.
It's the flex field.
Right, which is where it was initially. But there was, in the conversations with the consultants, when people were asking about where's the ice rink going to go, they said, it will go here. So just want to make sure that that's for the record. And also with Roosevelt, can you talk about the option of connecting Little Rosie to the whole park, and where that fell apart, or why it's not part of this comprehensive plan?
So there is a connection. There is proposed as a tabletop here between Roosevelt and Little Rosie.
No, I mean, how come there was a request to make it one whole park?
That was discussed with DPW and the fire department, and it's not something we are pursuing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with the Pomeroy Park piece, what is the input aspect moving forward? Like today, are people invited to share what they want with Pomeroy, and then, or not? Is that sort of input time over, and when is the next kind of public input period?
So at any time, we're more than open to hear any feedback about Pomeroy. It's not over till the crane or the whatever is there. But in terms of the next phase, so we are using the data and the input we've gotten so far to start moving in the direction of identifying different uses within the playground. So more like active or passive, really high level. And once we've kind of gotten into those details and we're thinking about different options, then we'll come back and to the public, not come back here necessarily, but go back to the public and ask input on those different kinds of options. And it may be also weighing in on circulation or vegetation or that kind of thing.
Awesome. Can I just request that the NPA be a part of that public input process? Or like we could have posters at our dinner or something like that.
Sure, more than happy to bring it back to the NPA.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Yes.
So I heard the words roller skating several times, and it does remind me of disco and 8-track tapes, and those are both long dead. Did you mean skateboarding? And why wouldn't there be a skateboarding component, considering that certainly is more of a predominant force amongst the youth and older people?
We heard a lot of feedback from both skateboarders and from roller skaters. And I did mean roller skate and not necessarily the 8-track. But in that space that we're proposing, there would be the ability to have the portable features for skateboarding as well. Integrated in there, but it would be a space for both kinds of uses. Yeah. And I push back on it's not dead. In other communities all over, especially since COVID, roller skating is having a comeback. And with a lot of communities, if you just do a bit of Googling, you'll see that it never went away. So we're trying to address that gap in our community that we don't have a facility for roller skating. And they're often here in this building using it.
Nice.
Yeah, can I talk a little bit about that? Because I love roller skating. Talking a little bit more about the ice skating, Andrea, one thing that we always need to talk about is what's happening with the climate. And I think last year we set a record for low number of days during the winter where we actually had skatable ice. And for better or worse, it's becoming over time a losing proposition to get that few of days for the maintenance that it takes. So we are beginning to look at things like synthetic ice. I know that sounds not that great, but if it were the only choice, I think it has more flexibility, and we're also looking at building a roller rink at Letty that has similar to artificial ice, but it's only for roller skating. But there might be a spot for a rink at Roosevelt, but that doesn't mean if we can only have it for 10 days out of the year that we would make that move unless we had a way to get more use out of it than that. Sad but true. Synthetic ice is, there are a number of parks in bigger cities that have tracks for skating. Chicago is one of them. It is typically a modular kind of plastic paving square, and I don't know what is special about it. Maybe it's Teflon coated, I'm not sure, but it basically it has no temperature requirements. Yeah, so maybe we'll check it out sometime. Oh. That's better.
Thank you. Okay, so we have about enough time for one more question. If there's any other questions in the crowd. Questions or comments also? Yes? Sorry. No, you're good. Also say your name.
Andrea again. Just to stick with the roller skating, Alicia, I don't know where Alicia is, but Alicia Taylor started a roller skating club. There is one in Burlington. There's two. Okay, great. What's the other one?
Vermont Skate League Society and Joyriders.
Actually, there's also the Derby that's reached out to us in wanting to do camps. So that's 3 groups.
Awesome, exciting. Okay, we have like 30 seconds if anyone else has any other questions. Okay, if not, you can always email them because the email should be on the agenda and everything. Thank you all so much for coming and talking to us. Thank you all. Amazing. Can you put the budget that I sent you on the school board? Did you actually? Okay, awesome. I think I did. Did I shared it? Okay, sorry y'all, some tech issues. Classic here, we love that. So next we're gonna be transitioning into a conversation about what we as the Neighborhood Planning Assembly, Ward 2 Neighborhood Planning Assembly should be doing with the funds we receive from the City of Burlington. Some additional context, historically we have used that funding to go into small grants. That is no longer allowed based off of Burlington's legal department reading the rules and regulations and interpreting it differently than they historically have, which is totally fine. That's what lawyers do. And so as a result, the last year we had to switch up what we were doing, and the proposed budget we now have is just slightly different than what we used to do with the funding. We're pulling that up on the spreadsheet shortly soon. Sorry for the wait time, y'all. Apologies. Oopsies. But yeah, so we're gonna just have like a 15-minute conversation with everyone, and then we're gonna hopefully put it up to a vote so that we can start using those funds before the deadline, because one of our bylaws in our NPA is that we all have to vote on what we're using the funds with before we spend it. One thing I know specifically that's on the budget is $400 to be used to go pay for space, because next month we can't use the space since it's getting renovated. So we're hoping to have use space at the Richard Kemp Center over in a different part of the Old North End. So that's one key piece of the budget that I know is going to be brought up. Okay, we finally have it. Can we make that a little bigger on the screen if possible? And I'll run through this with everyone really fast. Okay, so of our 3,000 budget, we currently have about $250 over. So we're going to have that conversation as a community about what we want to cut. Or we could just have a vote that you let the steering committee decide, in which case we'll figure that out later. Some of the budget's running down. Community Dinner has requested some budgets to update their sandwich boards and also to get more scoops and bowls. For outreach, we're hoping to do a mailer similar to what we did last summer to email every resident in the, or not every mailing address in the Old North End to let them know about the community dinner and about the NPA and invite them to attend. We also want to have some funding for tabling at future events and also outreach money spent for advertisements, such as in the North Ave News. We're hoping to have around $30 to spend on arts and crafts supplies to entertain children during community dinner and help parents come to these meetings and make sure it's accessible to them. And then meeting support, we have to pay $20 for a shared Zoom subscription. We'd love some money for door prizes, and then the February rental fee, which I had mentioned, is about $400. So that's a little bit over. We would love to just start this conversation with people's thoughts and go from there in a quick 15-minute conversation. So, yes. Also, as a reminder, not to scold anyone, but please say your name and your ward when you speak. Thank you. There we go.
My name is Paige Korologis, and I live on Booth Street. I think you need a lot more money for crafts. And I'm serious.
No, that's fair. Michael's is not cheap, as someone who goes there often. Does anyone else have any thoughts? If not, I can also just give us some time to reflect and read silently. Thank you, Andrea.
Do you take donations for some of these things? Like if people wanted to donate art supplies, or are there areas that you were requesting from the community to contribute, or is it just cash money that you want?
We would love donations for craft supplies, any of that sort. We would also love, like, if that's a special interest of someone where they're able to help coordinate that. I think the steering committee is a bit at capacity to coordinate that sort of effort. But if someone, that's like a skill they have, coordinating and finding other stuff, we wouldn't say no to that. Lovely. Jess, thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Jess Hyman. I use she, her pronouns. I live on North Champlain Street, coordinate the community dinner. And I just wanted to thank the steering committee for putting a community dinner line item on the budget. And just I want to clarify too that we collect donations every month for community dinner, and those donations generally pay for the ingredients. Like it kind of ebbs and flows over the course of the year, and we get some money donated from City Market for ingredients, and of course a lot of our vegetables come from local farms, which is amazing. And so the operating costs month to month are covered through community donations, all of you, thank you, and other sources, but we don't have money for the bigger things, and so that's why we've requested a little bit of money this year to do some signage and to get some more bowls, because as you saw tonight, we had almost 180 people eating dinner tonight, which is one of our topmost records, and we run out of things. And so we really appreciate you considering some funds for some one-time costs for community dinner. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Yes, you? Yes. Thank you.
Just an idea. It may be too late, given that the February meeting has already been noticed at the Kemp Center, but that rental price is extremely high compared to what the school district would charge if we were able to use one of their spaces. I don't know, was that tried to the Sustainability Academy? It's about half of
Yeah, we did. So the Sustainability Academy would be very happy to host the NPA and community dinner, but they happen to be booked that night on the 13th. And also they don't have the same tech. So the technology is really important for Channel 17 to be able to do the live stream and to have a Zoom where people can participate.
I'm really getting my steps in today, y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, because just looking at the budget for really like the second time myself, I just noticed that the Kemp Center fee really is what's pushing us over the limit. So I'm wondering if anyone knows of any spaces that would be open on February 13th and would be capable of hosting the NPA meeting and the community dinner that would be like, cheaper. That would be something that I would be interested in hearing from the community about. I just saw that Brian mentioned that, so.
Where's that? Also, I'm going to give you the mic so people on Zoom can hear that.
Sarah Holbrook Center's on North Ave, and it's recently in flux space. Is that a fair place? Yeah. Brian, since you're here, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know, are there CEDO funds to help with, that help NPA? And I'm not sure how I know there's a connection with CEDO and NPA, but is there a budget that comes from CEDO?
Here you go. Thank you.
This funding comes through CEDO that the NPAs get as the base funding, so that's the base. But it did occur to me that this wards 2 and 3 I've never had a problem spending the money because there's so much activity, there's so much going on. Not every ward is in that situation, so by the end of the year, there's often remaining funds left over. So we can, I think, be a little bit flexible around that as far as working it out in the end. It'll all come out in the end, I guess.
Good to know. Good to know. Any other comments or thoughts from folks? Yes.
Thank you. Megan Humphrey again from St. Louis Street. And one of the other things that would be a helpful donation, as Andrea said, the arts and crafts would be, but also any door prizes, because that is typically something easy to get through this community. Thanks.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. So what do we want to do for this? We've not really reached an agreement on what we want to strike from the item to get us lower. Okay, so it seems like we're going to look into trying to bring down the rental fee. And then I'm trying to run over things. And if that doesn't work out, are there any other suggestions? There's one suggestion.
I guess I would propose approving this budget without the money for rental space, because it seems like if CEDO has a general budget and we're just being displaced for 1 month, that's more of like a technical structural issue that's not like NPA specific. Like other NPAs might be displaced and CEDO could just kind of cover that need. You know what I mean? So I would just propose passing it without the rental space fee, but that with the expectation it'll get covered. And a space will be found that might be cheaper, like Sarah Holbrook.
Does that work for the steering committee? Everyone cool with that like kind of weird caveat? Does that work for everyone else? In which case, unless other people have that, I'm going to say let's have a real quick vote All those in favor who live in Ward 2 on passing this current budget with the caveat that we are going to work to find a cheaper location, hopefully. And if not, we're going to make it work. Please say aye. Okay, all those opposed, please say nay. All those who abstain? Amazing. Okay, the ayes have it. This passes, in which case we're going to be moving on to our next agenda item, which is an update from our school commissioners. Hooray, or commissioner, I think, today. Oh, amazing. Lovely. Probably should be online. Does she not have a... You could give her sharing. I think she has the screen. It's so the mics don't roll. We're so high tech. It just makes me want to take a nap. I know. The mic is live for you. Okay. You got sent a presentation, right?
I did.
Does Polly, sorry, I should have messaged her. Does Polly want to display it online, or should we get someone else to hit?
I don't know. Will she be able to be visible at the same time?
We're displaying the presentation, she might not be visible.
Well, let's ask Polly.
Okay. I don't know if Polly heard any of that because it wasn't on mic, I'm realizing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to grab the mic?
Yes. Hi, Polly. I don't know if you heard any of that. So sorry to just give this little live commentary right now. We're not sure if having the presentation go live will make your face not viewable. So would you all want to go without the presentation, or do you want to share the presentation and we'll see?
There's not a ton of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, Polly, what do you think? You better talk in the microphone.
Hi. Sorry.
Should I not do the slideshow? I think the prompts are kind of important, but there's not a ton of the slides that we're going to talk about.
No, go ahead and do the slideshow. And then afterward, if I need to be seen, then we can use me later. But I think it's important to have that tool while you're talking about it. So definitely use the slideshow.
Okay, I just want to look at it at the same time. And you guys have it, right? I sent it in.
Yes, we have it. Can you actually? We'll get that up. If you guys want to if y'all want us to get started, we can get that up presently.
Hold on, I gotta find it first. Well, do you want to, Polly, do you want to start or do you want me to start? I didn't have a chance to talk to Polly. I didn't get out of work until 6.
Yeah. Hi, we didn't really have a chance to coordinate about this, so I'll just introduce myself for those of you who don't know who I am. I'm the Ward 2 school commissioner, and we were invited tonight specifically to talk about the upcoming school budget and voting to approve said budget. Like, first the board is going to have to say that they're okay with it before it gets put on the ballot. And at this point, Jeannie's going to have a lot more information walking through the slideshow, but we are going to make our final decision about the budget and the budget number at our January 21st meeting. We are still cautionary about the numbers because we're still getting numbers from the state. This is one of the most frustrating things about this budgeting process, that we're asked to have language and budget numbers by a certain date, yet we are still receiving information from the state. But my understanding, and Jeannie, please feel free to clarify if it's different for you, is that we have most of the numbers we need at this point to make an educated decision about what the budget should look like. And at this point, the district leaders are recommending a level service budget. So there are some more details to that, but we're not looking at huge swings really in either direction. And in fact, some small relief, in fact, which maybe the slideshow will provide more information about. So that's like a little introduction. Why don't you take over, Jeannie?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you, Polly. Yeah, so this is an estimate, not a baked in for sure. But school boards across the state are under a lot of pressure to pass their budgets. As people probably recall, last year it was a difficult process for a lot of different districts. And the structure of how education is funded in Vermont is under a lot of scrutiny. And because of that, the governor has sent out several letters urging school boards to be very frugal. And because of that, have accelerated the behind-the-scenes processes that we need to have the variables that go into what would be the end result of a tax implication. If anybody has any questions, I'm okay with being interrupted. So essentially what's happening is we are doing what you would consider a base level of service. There's everything that is offered now will be maintained. So level service is like how it's referred to. There's no new additions or positions being put into the budget. And the places that they're reducing things, okay, let's see. So we can look at the budgetary assumptions, which is slide 3. Wages, the bargaining agreements have not been made yet. They're actually just pretty much in their beginning stages. But these are the things that are eventually going to affect how much goes where. But there's enough cushion in moving forward, there's enough cushion for the variables of what that might mean. The health insurance stuff, I don't know, I've talked about it before. It's a state level thing. We don't have any way to negotiate a lower price. That's one of the things statewide that's being looked at with a lot of scrutiny, because we thought banding together would give us a stronger base to leverage affordability, and for whatever reason, we've seen double digits year after year, and it hasn't imparted any financial relief whatsoever. It's been the total opposite, and it's a figure that we have to work with, and it's a high figure. The debt service, we're talking about paying back the bond. We're still on the up. Last year was a big leap. This year it's a little bit of a leap, and it's gonna kind of level out before it finally goes down as far as like impacting our taxes directly. One of the main things that you guys should know is, we can probably go to the next one. Well, how we get money from the state has a lot to do with actual students matriculating. A lot of people are familiar with what's called the per pupil weighted system or weighting system. So your school board, Burlington School Board, helped form a statewide coalition that hired a lobbyist and helped pass Act 127, which was a huge shift in how they determine the cost for educating students. So some students cost more than others. And that can range from this kid needs English language courses to this kid has to be on a bus up in rural Vermont, you know, up in the Northeast Kingdom, and it takes an hour, and like maintaining their transportation is incredibly expensive. So I'm serving on the board of that as well, that coalition, along with Kendra Sowers, who's the, what district does Kendra represent? I don't know. One of the other, North District. I'm Central, she's North. She's also on that board. That has allowed, or I don't want to say allowed, so the money that we get, that Burlington gets from the state, has substantially increased thanks to our advocacy. So that is a huge part of why this year we're not going to be asking for more money. Basically what's going on is we are operating at a 2% less amount, and in the end, the taxes are supposed to decrease. I think it's 1.7. But like I said, or like Polly and I both said, this is not a final number, but it is looking much better than it has probably for the past 4 years. So the savings, the things that we are saving, or there are things that are just going away, like the rental for St. Mark's and the rental for Sarah Holbrook. After IAA is actually renovated, the kids are going to go back, so obviously they don't need to be put on a different site. So we're going to save a ton of money in, and that would be slide 9. No, where is that? That would be slide 8. So we're looking at 200,000 savings from St. Mark's, same amount of money, aligning staffing to enrollment. In other words, like how many staff per kid, per student. And of course, it's not necessarily like a 20-to-1 type of ratio. There are certain kids that have more than one staff based on, maybe it's an IEP situation. Probably, I can foresee, probably the hardest cut that's out there is the 100,000 from central office, but all of our audits have told us that we're not compromising I guess you could say, the amount of people who work in central office is still going to be a little bit above average compared to other districts in the area. Oh, okay, so that would be it's on me, it says it's slide 8. Is that wrong for you guys? Yeah, one more. Yeah. And the money that we are saving is going towards building maintenance. As we know, we do not want to ever get into a situation where a building is so far gone, we have to bond $100 and whatever million for it. But yeah, like it would be really nice to not live in the deferred maintenance world. Just trying to think what else, what other kind of things do you guys want to know? I can talk about also the RISE allocation, so the system of how that would be on RISE budget, sorry. Where's RISE? RISE allocation is slide 9. So each school community gets a chunk of money that they determine how it's going to be spent. So it's very similar to like how we've got our state budget, and then we have our, the local control of our spending. So they get to prioritize, and I'm sure it's based on their school community values, how they're going to allocate those funds. And each school has I guess you would call it like an advisory committee that's made up of parents and staff members along with like district leadership. I don't know, what else do we want to know? Let's see. Positive impact from Act 127. In 24, we spent $21,000 per pupil. Now we are currently spending 13, and in 2026, it's going to be 15. When we learn the final numbers, we do not necessarily know. 135 million bond is what we borrowed. 18 million of the budget is going towards the bond this year, going towards the debt. 10% increase in this budget is mostly due to wages. And we should also note that even though wages are going up, currently inflation is at 2.5%. So when we are approaching these bargaining negotiations for future contracts, we're really going to implore that everybody look at the big picture and say, please, let's take fiscal responsibility, not just for educating our children, but also not burdening our taxpayers. And how you will see the language on the ballot is a mandate from the state. It's probably going to be very garbly and confusing. We will see that fairly soon, and if people have questions about it, please feel free to contact Polly or I or anybody really on the board or the superintendent. We're doing pretty good on time. Questions?
Yeah, we can do questions. Is anyone? Okay, awesome. Mark, could you help me? Thank you.
Thank you. The slideshow on the website and this are really helpful, and I personally think the budget looks really good, and the work that you all have done the past year on the, or maybe it's a couple years, I don't know, I've read climate survey, a lot of data, a lot of research driven by an equity framework. And a lot of the budget work appears to be driven by an equity framework. So I was just curious on the overarching board guidance. The word equity doesn't appear in those 6 bullets at all. In fact, one of the bullets says, continue to offer academically rigorous programming for all learners, which is a great goal. But it's almost like the overarching guidance either thinks we've achieved equity or, once again, has whitewashed the district's kind of overall guidance. And so I was just wondering if you could please introduce an amendment to that board guidance to maybe say offer academically rigorous and rigorously equitable learning for all students. And then the other thing is like look for ways to reduce the cost per pupil. I mean, I don't think we really want to reduce the cost per pupil because there's a lot of pupils that we actually need to increase the cost for who are facing an opportunity gap. And then there's a lot of students who have a lot of opportunities that we could probably afford to reduce the cost for them because they're going to be fine no matter what. So it just seemed like the guidance all of a sudden became disconnected from the whole underlying principle of equity and anti-racism that the district has been working so hard to achieve.
What if 6 was something more in the lines of find ways to achieve a more equitable distribution of pertaining to cost per pupil? Is that both? Did I just get a 2-for-1 possible amendment? Former school board member. Well, the reason I'm saying that is because the reason I'm saying that is because I think that is what we value. And when I look at I wonder if I don't want to take it for granted, and I definitely don't want to, what's the word? You know how sometimes you have to strategically put something in the forefront of your mind or else you will make assumptions that it's being done? I think this is one of those times where I believe that our board believes that they are operating in an equitable way, and that maybe we're not naming it because of that, but at the same time, there's always new board members.
Well, and I think that's what white people do. We just assume we're doing the right thing.
I totally agree,
and
Liz.
it's not explicit.
No, exactly, and I'm really glad you brought it up because that makes me feel self-conscious in all the good ways. No, it's true. Never mind. Thank you. Can we see Polly again, if Polly has any? No more questions? Everybody's going to support the budget, right? Oh, well, thank you. I was kind of joking, but thanks.
I love that. So anyone on Zoom asking any questions? I've been bad about checking on that this month. Sorry. Apologies. Okay. Anybody else? Give us like an awkward 10-second time to think on that.
And Liz, I can put the idea of an amendment on the next DE9. Monica and I are going to talk about our committee meeting agenda.
Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to ask about, Winooski became a sanctuary school. Are you guys doing that?
It's on on the agenda.
Your next agenda.
To discuss it. I think it
Okay.
might be more of a procedure or maybe a, blah, 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 blah. What's the thing? I believe it starts with an R.
Administrative.
Polly, what's it called when the board endorses something like,
Ratify.
no?
No, because it would have to be moved as a policy.
A resolution.
Resolution.
Winooski, yeah,
Starts with an
Winooski has a model policy.
Yeah,
Model.
sorry.
Keep going, yes. Mime, a little mime there.
Thank you. Okay, over and out.
Sweet. Amazing. Okay. And I'm sure if anyone thinks of any other questions, they can always follow up over email. Lovely. And now we're going to have some updates from our city councilors. Milo's in person, and Jean, I believe, should be joining. Lovely.
Do you have Jean yet? No? I guess I'll start. Hello, hello, hello. So let's talk about what's hot off the press, which is the executive order for BPD press releases to be approved by the mayor's office before being released. As a former police commissioner, I can tell you that the issue with BPD press releases has been one that has been brought up multiple times over years. And we've just not been able to get the department to listen with regards to how they can actually put out more press releases that are more beneficial to the public and help improve community engagement, but also address some issues where, I'm gonna give you two examples. One example happened a few months ago, an individual who was being attacked in their building, and they responded by spraying the person with pepper spray. But unbeknownst to them, somebody was like behind a door where it happened, and they inadvertently got sprayed. It was an accident. This individual acknowledged responsibility for what happened and was extremely remorseful. The press release went out giving information about the incident, the charge, as well as his whole previous criminal record. Now, I spoke to this person personally. He was attacked, he was protecting himself, and a very regretful accident happened. But this person had to worry about his employer seeing this press release. And this was someone who had gotten their life together. And every little thing that had ever been done was thrown out, and it was inappropriate. And the chief said publicly it was assault. It was horrendous. We also had an incident a few years ago where a young American teenager, a new American teenager, had gotten into trouble. His pictures was on the press release, and in the same press release were all the crime statistics for the past year. This hurt people in our community. Someone I know who works with kids in one of the programs at BHS, they talked about it. They talked about how they felt they were being targeted. And there's other issues with the press releases. So this has come up before, and now we have this unusual situation where you have a defense lawyer saying this needs to stop, this is over the top, and a situation where the state's attorney
agreed. I don't think it is right for, people should not be assuming this came out of the blue. People should not assume that this was never brought up. It was brought up. It's just one of the problems with leadership. I continue to read pages and pages and pages of comments from the internal BPOA survey. It is attached with the meeting documents from the December 19th. Oh, thank you. The police department's union. So they did an internal survey. VT Digger did an article on the survey. We hear a lot of the same things with regards to feeling not being supported by city government, not being supported by people in the city, their workload. These are all real things. I completely acknowledge that. But what we hear and what they've been doing their best to downplay is issues regarding leadership. People being treated, there would be issues where there was favoritism shown towards certain officers by certain supervisors. Statement saying that chiefs plural, did not work well together. Chiefs would violate rules and directives and nothing was done. Indications that officers who did something that maybe was not intentional, but there would be an investigation that would be made public, people would be humiliated, while other people did the same thing and nothing happened. So this is available for people to read. I'll be quoting from it over the next few weeks, and I'll be getting it straight from here, and people can read it. I think it's very important because we really need to have an understanding of not only the external pressures on the department, but the very real internal pressures that better leadership could be working on. I'm also very concerned about wellness. There's a lot of indication with some of these comments that there's might be a wellness crisis that we really need to be looking at. And they care about recruitment and retention as well. They talk about that. They talk about there needing to be a retention plan because we're seeming to bring in warm bodies, but people aren't staying. So they care about that as well, and it's just really important. Is Jean with us? Just let me know when Jean pops up. Oh, hey, Jean. Okay. So the upcoming, there were actually going on tonight is another community safety forum. It is being recorded, so at your convenience, I recommend you watch it on Town Meeting TV. And there was a forum Monday night kind of talking about some of the major expenses and ballot items that are coming up. So trying to really get people information on things that we need for the city and what's going to be on the March ballot. There will be the first reading of some charter changes Monday. There will be the review of the chief's report, which was a requirement based on a public safety resolution that was done in September. I did not support this resolution. I thought it was really performative, and I did not believe that our chief would follow what was put forth in the resolution, and he didn't, and our mayor has written a memo saying she cannot accept the report. She's very polite. She calls it a report. I call it a manifesto. 71 pages. Once again, it's public. Anybody can read it, and you can make up your own mind. But I'll call it a manifesto. There is a, I am going to briefly mention a report from Lacey Smith, who is the Associate Director of the CAPE program. We had an excellent report from her at our December Public Safety Committee meeting, and I'm going to have it attached to the meeting documents for the December Public Safety Committee meeting and this coming Monday's meeting. It was really interesting. It gives us a great snapshot with regards to the work that professional team is doing, and also giving us some data about the length of time that they spend with individuals, as well as the type of work that they do with individuals. The work that they do isn't a traditional quote unquote incident. So it's about tracking hours with people in order to come up with plans for them to help reduce the number of times that they are having to interact with our community safety and our justice system. I will stop there and see if Jean has anything to say. Hey.
Sure. Hi. How is everybody there? So I can see you, Milo. I can't see who's there. So let me just speak into the ether and say that this coming Monday meeting is going to be important for a number of things. Thanks. I mean, we've got not only the charter changes, and those are things that I've talked about in the past at the NPA, but there's going to be a report and a work session on impact fees. One of the things that we have not done since the early 90s is review our impact fees, the fees that are charged to developers for the impacts of their new developments. And that needed to be updated. I've been talking about updating it since I was re-elected in 2022. And there, I believe, are going to be some significant changes, many of which are going to allow us, I think, to get some transportation changes that we're looking for, improved bike and pedestrian safety material, activities in the city, and transportation demand management things. So that's going to be a work session that people who are particularly interested in transportation should pay attention to. The other thing that we're going to be doing is having a first cut at the upcoming budget. It's interesting to note, people talk about so-called defunding of the police, but since I've been elected in 22, there hasn't been any defunding of the police, and this year, all the departments except police and fire are going to be having a 5% vacancy on their expenditures. In other words, not spending any money. The only two departments that are being exempted from that are the police and fire departments. We still are looking at, because of health insurance costs, particularly rising, is an increase of about $7.5 million. And so the mayor is looking to figure out the ways to fix that gap, to fill that gap, and to do it without using one-time monies. And so it appears that we're looking between now and when the budget has to be approved in June to about $3.5 million or $4.5 million that we've got to figure out to cover. But the mayor is not recommending a general property tax increase. So I think that for folks who are concerned about your property taxes, if you own your home, or for renters who end up getting hit by the tax increases that their landlords are paying, this is a meeting to pay attention to, and materials are posted on the agenda, so that if you can't make it and can't watch it, you can get there and look at the materials. There is, let me see, one other thing in here that I wanted to mention, and that is, yes, the water resources bond. We've had over the years a lot of talk about beach closures. We also have got a significant issue with just clean water and the plants that are putting out clean water, the reservoir that makes sure that water can go up to the hospital absolutely essential. And so for a number of months, and we've got at the last NPA meeting a report and a presentation by DPW's water resources folks, and that is coming to us again on this coming Monday night, because we are going to be asked to put on the ballot 2 bond measures, one for wastewater and stormwater, and the other for water, to bond the improvements that are, in my mind, absolutely necessary. And it will. I am supportive of this while I've been pushing them to make affordability foremost in their mind, and to do whatever they can to keep the costs down. And I feel that they have done that. And so this will be probably one of the last updates that we'll have on that. And I suspect that if not this meeting, but the next meeting, we'll be asked to put it on the ballot. It has to be done by next meeting. And so that is coming up, and these things will continue to be present. You know, all of the work that's done on our infrastructure means that it's difficult to get around town, and clearly we see exactly what's going on with that. So it's going to be a continuing issue, but it's absolutely essential. We, you know, if you don't spend it now, the alternative is to my mind horrendous. So I think that's it for right now.
Thank y'all. Hello? Oh no. Okay, amazing. Hello. We're gonna switch into Q&A.
Hi, thank you, Andrea Todd, Ward 2. Jean, I mentioned this in the public forum piece, and I don't think you were here, but I wanted to ask from Tuke if you have any updates about the public transportation, or the public transportation plan that's coming in the next few months. It's part of the revising or replanning of the public transportation. Chapin's
Andrew,
been
you talking
telling
about
me-
the walk bike plan?
No,
Is that
there's there's 2 things. There's the bike walk plan BTV, which I have major problems with. It was a very performative public process. It actually isn't related to the bike infrastructure, or the transportation infrastructure is not present in the bike walk plan BTV. I'd love to follow up with you about that. But on top of that, according to Public Works and Planning, there is a transportation plan that's going to be happening in the next several months, and I'm very skeptical that it's going to include multiple departments, like more than just Public Works and Planning, but BED that seems to have very little understanding of the transportation picture in Burlington as they're putting in residential plugs. They're not looking at the whole picture. So I'm concerned, A, that there hasn't been much like a date on that yet so that people can organize and understand what's coming for that meeting. And B, I'm very concerned that there's not I don't get the sense that there's a collaborative nature of that plan. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about what you know about it, or if there's any information about that. Even if you don't know about it, I think that's important for us to know, because I think that's also problematic if they're not sharing that with you on Tuke. And then
Sure.
just, Milo, I just wanted to say too, there was a time when prior till Del Pozo, we had a thing called Nixle that was a wonderful community service notification of press releases from the public or from the police department, but it was really like nothing like what we see today. But it was a really informative way of letting people know what was happening in our neighborhoods, and Del Pozo refused to do that. And as we know, he wanted to do that only through social media, but since that all spiraled out of control, we know that didn't work. But it's someone in the NPA recently asked, is there a community way for people to know what's happening in our neighborhoods? And I would love to just request that Nixle be brought back when the press releases are not so. But Jean, can you just answer Jean first and
Yeah,
then Milo? Thank you.
yep, that's great, Andrea. The answer is no, that has not come to our committee yet, to the TOOC. And so I am not aware of their plan for engagement. I'm not in, we haven't gotten any draft on that. We have been talking about transportation. So we've been talking about the revisions to the bird bike contract and making all the concerns that you and others have had around the way that these are parked and the competition with our local vendors. That's a big part of it. We spent a lot of time on the Winooski Bridge and the Southern Connector. Those things are now moved on. So and we spend a lot of time on McNeil and other energy things. So the transportation plan has not reached us, and this is why we need the NPAs and you to do what we need to bring this up, so that we can bring that up come the next meeting. So do me a favor and help me. We should be meeting the 4th Tuesday of this month. I'm pretty sure it's our regular thing. So if you could help me just sort of by dropping me an email that just says, Jean, don't forget, then I can bring it up. That's really appreciated. It takes a village, obviously, to keep me intact. So there you go.
And if you could, hello, there we are. If you could email me, Nixel, it was called. Yeah, just to trigger a reminder, and I'll do some Googling. I think we're going to finally have an opportunity to change the press releases and change the way that the department communicates with the public, with new leadership. We know what's been talked about in 21st century policing. When President Obama was in office, he had this whole thing where he gathered all these people very familiar with policing in our country and the problems with policing in our country, and they released this whole report, and it was all about 21st century policing, and there are pillars of 21st century policing, and those pillars talk about the importance of community engagement. And community engagement is also very important when it comes to retention and recruitment. It's all related. So I look forward to a lot of changes, and I look forward to just being able to be doing best practice for things. I am taking part of the Community Academy. I don't know if you know about that. The Public Information Officer, Sarah Tim, she was here at one of our recent meetings handing out flyers on the Community Academy. It's something that I've wanted to do, but it's been really hard to schedule it in the past because of the other workloads. When I was a police commissioner, we had all these extra committees reviewing relationship with the public, reviewing the consultant that did the research on the police department, and there were joint committees and subcommittees, and then being a counselor in all the meetings. But I said this year I'm going to do it, and it is definitely a great program. There was a lot of stuff that I knew, but I learned stuff. I also like meeting people that work within the department. We had a presentation from the new recruiting team. I'm very glad that they have stepped up. The recruiting coordinator used to be a CSO, a community service officer, so she's already had a lot of experience and knows the department. So I think they're capable of doing great things, and I think they, similar to the previous team that had a lot of success with regards to the other departments. A lot of people, because we have so much publicity around the officers, a lot of people don't realize that we were in really bad shape with our dispatch team years ago. We were down to 4 people, and that was one of the reasons that people had a hard time getting through, were talked to in certain ways that didn't really reflect good customer service, shall we say. That team has been built back up to 12 people now. We've built out the CAPE team, the community service officers, the CSLs, the CARES team, which we started talking about in the community. A lot of people in the community were looking at this program in Eugene, Oregon, the CAHOOTS model, and spoke highly of it. And I remember the first actual presentation to the police commission, I believe, was in 2021. So following through that, all these years and the funding and the approvals, and now we have a vehicle and now we have staffing, so those clinicians are starting. So we are really building something very special here, but we have to get the numbers of officers back up. And I think if we have leadership that's actually listening and following best practice and using tools that are used. If I see this reference to this article that was placed in a newspaper one more time, it shows up in all the reports. Why didn't we use social media? Why aren't we targeting digital advertising? This is how people get information, find jobs. Why are we keep repeating over and over again the success of one article? Where's all the other stuff that we should be doing in order to engage people? I sent the mayor a group of videos. It was an article about videos from police departments in our country and in other countries that are doing videos to promote their department, but they are doing things with a twist on them. And probably the funniest one was this was an American, I think it was Fort Worth, Texas. It's their morning roll call. They're telling the officers what to expect for the day. They point to one officer and say, "You've got the Wookiee." And the officer said, "What? Oh, you mean the rookie?" And they said, "No, the Wookiee." And the camera pans out and Chewbacca's sitting next to him. And then the rest of the video is Chewbacca out in the field as a new rookie, learning things. And of course, you can imagine they don't always go right. But the whole point was to have this humor and kind of attract people who are watching it to the department. And then there was another department that had, they did a video with a child who was clothed, and the clothes were dirty, and the child was by himself, and he was going through a garbage can, and people were just walking by him. And then a woman stopped and started talking to ask him, "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" And then you hear the voiceover, and it says, "Are you the person who would stop? You know, reach out to us because we're looking for you." So there are ways to do things and in a way to connect with people, to grab attention that we're not doing and that we could be doing very easily. And I believe our department has a story to tell. I think that we can bring people in by telling them that this is an opportunity to be part of something special, because we've built these other facets of community safety. We need to get the foundation back with the police officers, and that will be a challenge. And I believe that there are people out there who will rise to the challenge. I think they just have to have faith in the leadership. And this is telling me that faith in current leadership doesn't exist right now. Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anyone else? This is still on, right? Okay, lovely. I love that. Any other questions? No? Okay. In which case, I think we might end the meeting a little bit early, if that's all right with everybody. Okay, awesome. Admittedly, we do not have a raffle item today. That is my fault. I'm sorry. It was snowing too much and I forgot to pick it up. So we're going to end the meeting early. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to everyone who was online. This was so great. And yeah, have a good evening. Everyone get home safe. And thank you all.